All right. Yeah. So we're live now. So we're just going to give it like a minute or so, and then we'll kick things off from there. And we have lovely Amy here, who's been really nice to hop on. Yeah, there's people joining here now. So we'll just give it a minute or so, and then we'll kick things off from here. Just pull this up here now on my end. Awesome. Give it 30 more seconds. So we'll get it to a minute, and then we'll jump into things.
Sounds good.
You've got the sunny weather over there.
Yeah, it's 3 o'clock my time in Pennsylvania. So we've had 90-some degree weather, a lot of heat. It was a great summer to have a pool. We don't have a pool, sadly. It's brutal this
That's
summer.
better than what we have over in Ireland.
Yeah, we usually have a lot of rain in Pennsylvania, but for some reason this year it was 90 and dry most of the summer. So it was a good summer.
We just had rain. No sun. Right, awesome. So we have a good chunk of people on. So we'll just kick things off here. So we have obviously Amy here, who's been really, really nice to hop on and do this video with me and just go through her journey so far. I'm going to let her just kind of give herself an overview of who she is, because she'll know herself by my will. So just give us a sentence or two about yourself, who you are, what you do, and we'll move from there.
I am a mom of two. I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, a wife. I'm a nurse anesthetist in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, United States. I've been sort of through all sorts of training, all sorts of diets over the years, and I just kind of came to the point where I wanted to try something new, and I did.
Perfect. Before we kind of go into things that you've done in the past, like just give us a run through of like even what your lifestyle is like a little bit, with your shifts in work, what you find most challenge with that, and obviously the kids as well.
So I work a lot of shifts, not all the time, but I do a lot of call work. A lot of nurses are like that. For me, I do sometimes a 24-hour shift and a 16 in a week. So that's a 40-hour week, which sounds great when you have the other 5 days off, but it's extremely daunting when you're there. It's hard to sort of plan meals. It's hard to get a workout in. And then even on those days off, you're so tired from the shift work that you did the night before. Sometimes it's hard to get motivated to do something. My other shifts, I usually work 5/8. So this week I'm all 5/8. It's actually easier for me to do the things I need to do. I have two very active children who are very competitive in sports. I have two kids both children, I have a daughter and a son. They both play hockey. My son, ice hockey. My daughter plays volleyball. She was a figure skater up until last year. My son plays competitive baseball. So it's extremely busy with them, and we love doing all the stuff with them. But between taking them to practices and things like that, I have a husband who's extremely helpful and gets into a lot of stuff, but we have to divide and conquer a lot. So pushing time for myself is very hard.
And I know. Every weekend it's like something's on.
And I love it, but it's overwhelming sometimes, and like I have to push a little time aside for myself, and it's hard to make those commitments.
Definitely. And like there's definitely going to be a couple people that are watching this that are obviously have kids as well, and a lot of what I find with moms especially, that they put themselves down the list a whole lot, or yes everybody else, and they're saying no to themselves basically. But just run us through then like what you've tried in the past, because you've been with me for around 10-11 weeks now. Just run me through like what you were doing in the past, kind of what worked, what didn't, things like this, and where you are then before you joined on.
I mean, just to be clear, I'm not in my 20s anymore. So I've done a lot of things over the last 20 years. I'm 40. How old am I? 46. I'm 46. So even from my 20s on, I've always sort of struggled back and forth with, being in shape and then, kind of falling out of shape, and then being in, really good shape again, and then doing the same thing. So Weight Watchers did that. Paleo did that. Counting carbs, counting protein, trying to do macros, but sort of on my own version of it, which was kind of a disaster because trying to fit them in was hard. Training was never hard for me. I never had a problem going to the gym. I used to run. I did half marathon. I did a Tough Mudder, which are those obstacle races. I did all those. Last probably time I did that was about 7 years ago. That was still in my late 30s. So I've tried a lot of things. I've done boxing. So I'm not afraid to work out, but I think sometimes I wasted a lot of my time doing things that, would give me short-term results. And then I think I would burn myself out on it, or I'd get bored, and then I would kind of fall back into, screw it, I'm just going to eat the cheesecake and the pizza and have 12 beers. And maybe not all at once, but, that kind of lifestyle swinging back and forth. And then that just sort of gets you back to where you were before you lost the weight the first time. So frustrating to be sure.
And like, just run us through like even one example of kind of maybe what you achieved and then what happened afterwards, because that's kind of the biggest thing you struggle. Like you probably could get very close to the end goal, but then it was the afterwards that struggled.
I've done almost near starvation diets. I did this HCG diet where you took this HCG drops and you ate about 500 calories a day. And, I lost a ton of weight in, 6-8 weeks. And then of course you can't survive that way. And then you kind of go the opposite way and you're like, I've never had pizza, so I'm going to eat a whole one, so you sort of do this sort of really restrictive dieting. And then I can never just make it moderate where I would just stay. So I did that. That was probably the most extreme thing I've ever done. I probably lost 25 pounds in 2 months, maybe, which was huge for me. Paleo, I did that for almost a year and that was successful, but it was boring and it was very hard. It was like not fun at all. And I found out that I really didn't need to not eat any grains. I mean, gluten really doesn't bother me as much. I think it's just the quantity and the things that you eat. So that was successful, but hard to stick with. So yeah, Weight Watchers was kind of boring to me. Counting points was just like, blah, like, all right, well, I ate all my points at, 9 a.m. I'm like, now what do I do? So,
and like it is, because a lot of people do Weight Watchers some of this and they do get somewhere, but they don't understand, I suppose, like what the points even mean, which you probably now understand a little bit now that it's obviously calorie controlled, so it is. But just like given that extreme one you did, you dropped 25 pounds on that, like what, just to give some people an idea, like what happened then afterwards when you finished that?
Well, then after you finish that and then you feel like you've not done anything socially with your friends, because it's impossible to eat 600 calories and have any alcohol or any sort of fun with friends. So you sort of like don't go anywhere, you don't do anything, you don't go out with friends, you don't socialize, you sort of, you eat your little tiny piece of chicken at the end of the day. And then what happens is you're off and you're like, oh, I look great and I'm in these great clothes. And then you kind of overdo it. At least I do. For me to, like I haven't had these things, so now you're like craving them. Or even when I was doing moderate things, you'd do so well all day, and then as soon as you get home, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to eat this and this and this, and they seem like healthy things, but a sandwich with peanut butter, like that's 200 calories for 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. So boom, 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 you've added another 900 calories, and you're just standing at the sink eating it, and like you're not even full. So that was super frustrating. Super frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's probably one of the extreme ones I've heard of, is the HCG drops.
Do it.
But you've done all that, so you kind of mean just going back and forth. Like your trains, I think you were doing that always straight. Like you love rowing, you love doing your trains, so that wasn't the issue. It's just trying to find the balance of like, how can I go about my nutrition more? So you obviously then reached out to us. Like, just give us an idea of where you were before you reached out and kind of why you reached out to look for something again, another thing.
We went on quarantine in our state, or at least, our state, on March 13th. Lucky Friday the 13th was my children's last day of school. They came home and never went back. I was still working. All healthcare workers were still working, so I wasn't on lockdown. I have a husband who is home, so it wasn't an issue for us. So we were in kind of a good position in terms of my finances weren't affected, thank the Lord. My husband was available. My kids aren't little babies, so they were able to do a lot of things online. And I think I couldn't go to the gym anymore. Everything was shut down. And I didn't have a lot of things at home. Like I didn't have a rower. The weather wasn't great for being outside yet. It was kind of cold or rainy. So I was just sort of perusing Facebook and saw an Ashley Crooks Bikini Academy. And I looked at it, I thought, this is nuts. Like if you look at the website, or the photo is this insanely muscular woman with these awesome legs. I'm like, well, I'm just going to click the link and see what it's about.
Entice you.
I wasn't expecting much. I thought I'd just get some bot to call me back. And then Ashley called me at my house and I was like, what? So
who is this?
I was like, oh my gosh, this is him. So, I talked to him and booked a call and sort of went over my same thing. I just kind of told you the things that I've done. And he said, it doesn't sound like it's your training. He sounds like you just need to focus your training and get your nutrition in line. And I think we can get you where you need to be. And I was like, okay. I think I was just up for anything at that point because I was desperate. I couldn't do the things that I was enjoying doing. Everything was locked down and I didn't know what to do. So I sort of took a leap of faith and and booked a call, and then you called me, and that was it.
And here we are. And like, just out of curiosity, because I kind of know some of the ins and outs, but just like even from a body confidence side of things, like where were you at before then? Like, was it just to kind of step it up a notch, or was it that you wanted to
No,
improve that as
I was
well?
definitely, I kind of always fluctuated with the same weight, back and forth. Like no one would ever look at me and go, oh my gosh, that's a really heavy woman over there. But I knew it was more than I wanted to have. And, my body fat percentage was, I know, high. I just felt like a layer of flab that I didn't enjoy. It just, I wouldn't wear shorts. I always had to have capris on because it covered everything that I didn't want to show. Even my arms, like I wouldn't show these off, at all. I
Yeah.
would just sort of hide everything and kind of keep everything in. And it's very hot to wear, capris all summer long just because you don't want, to cross your legs and see things you don't want to see on the side. So,
Understandably.
I was not confident. And I certainly wasn't wearing bikinis. I stopped wearing them anyway when I had kids, but I wasn't even comfortable really in a bathing suit. I'd have to cover up with a towel to run out of the, even to get in the pool, I would sort of put everything on and kind of get to the pool and take my towel off. And it wasn't fun doing that, and my kids are active and I don't want to see them. I didn't want them to see me that unconfident with myself. I want them to see they're athletic and they're in good shape. And I want them to still stay that way and not feel like, oh, poor mom, she doesn't want to wear, I don't want to wear mom clothes, So
Yeah.
the confidence was definitely low. I saw a picture of myself and you don't notice until someone shows you a picture. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that me? Like that dress fit because it was a stretchy dress, but I'm like, I looked much better than a year ago. I don't know what happened. So I decided it's just time to like lock it up and do something.
So it was kind of a bit of both. So it was obviously like from a body confidence point of view, obviously like to, I suppose, be a role model as well for your kids so that they see
Yeah.
how you were going about the rest of your life. Plus then also the frustration of just like going back and forth and like, why is this not working kind of thing? Or how do I
Right.
get there and stay there kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you had your call with Ashley, you had then your call with me, and we've been now 10, 11 weeks in. So just give us a run through then of what's changed for you in this time frame, what you've learned.
Well, really a lot. I think, I've always kind of known you could count it's calories in, calories out. It sounds so simplistic, but it really is true. I think for me though, realizing to focus on the protein first and then getting, so don't worry about your other macros as long as you stay within the calorie guideline I've given you for the week. That was huge. And then I look at myself and I'm like, I am eating about this many carbs every day and about this much fat every day. And as long as I've got the protein in, it worked out really well. I wasn't trying to count carbs and fats and protein. It sort of all fell into place. And I think for me, I have lots of information, but I didn't know how to put it together in the right way. So I knew sleep was important. I knew digestion was important, but I didn't know how to fix those things. I'd go to bed way too late. I mean, I'm in the operating room by 6:30 in the morning. So I live, 35 minutes away. So I leave before 6. I'm home. Sometimes I go to bed till 11 o'clock at night. So it's just exhausting. And then trying to figure out, even if I get a short amount of sleep, how can I get quality sleep? And even just some of the recommendations you made for headspace and a brain dump, and try not to have those things go in my head a million times while I'm trying to fall asleep. That was huge. Digestion, I think we tackled that several times throughout the weeks I've been with you. And before I would be like, oh, I'd get on the scale and I'd be up 2 pounds. And I'd be like, oh, that's it. I'm going to drink some wine and have some pizza and I'll try next year. Now I'm like, well, you know what? My digestion's off. So today I'm going to, change some of my protein. Maybe I took too much fiber. I found out could be bad. Not, it's not always good to have too much. Sometimes that makes it not work out either. Dairy. Now I'm like, I fix it in a couple of days and I'm down 4. So I was up 2 on Monday. I'm down 4 by Thursday. I was probably down 2 anyway. So those things don't frustrate me anymore. I don't freak out when I'm like, oh, I just gained 2 pounds. You're like, try 2 more days. And I'm like, oh yeah, I lost 3. So that
Huge,
was
like
helpful.
clarity wise as well. So you're not, as you said, like a lot of people will freak out on the first day that something goes up. So you just have a bit more, I suppose, education, knowledge base that you can play around with your own tool set.
Yeah, and then you're sabotaging yourself over information that's really incorrect. You're assuming something about yourself that's not even true. And you're like, oh, forget it. So now I don't do that anymore. And I feel like, yeah, I was up a pound, but I'm down 3 by Friday. So I'm fine.
Big
And
time.
that's hard. That's a hard mindset to change.
Yeah, hugely. But I think, like, again, you've had a couple of those ups and downs just due to, besides females are, it's always like this, and that's
And
just
your cycle too. And I don't always have one because, it's very inconsistent. And I'm like, oh, I probably do have an actual cycle. I just don't pay attention to it because I
yeah.
don't have to worry about it too much anymore. But I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. There's more water weight. And 3 days later, it's fine. So things I never paid attention to, I started paying attention to for the very first time, like ever.
Awesome. And then say from like a physique point of view, training point of view, like what's changed then for you, and even like a body confidence point of view in the time frame we've been working?
Yeah, I mean, I think physique is hugely different. I mean, I was wearing shorts, not really far into having started with you because things sort of started to come off. And even though the weight was coming off consistently but slowly, I felt like my physique was changing a lot. I think I was putting on more muscle, and maybe that's why some of that weight wasn't like losing all water and, a little bit of fat. I think I was also building muscle at the same time. So even though the weight sometimes would be like, oh, it's only a pound, but I'm like, yeah, but my arms look great. And, my legs are strong, and I have this little definition now. Like, those things were huge. So those are things you can't always measure. And I don't have a body fat percentage scale, but I feel like that's probably dropped even more significantly than the actual pounds that have come off too. So I noticed a huge difference. Everything feels tighter and just better.
Awesome, savage. And then say from like a lifestyle point of view, because obviously you mentioned earlier on you couldn't have the social occasions and this kind of stuff. You went on vacation as well,
Yeah.
halfway through or like a couple of weeks in. So it just
Right.
seemed like because obviously it's gone a little bit slower compared to what you've done drastically before, but just with the
Right.
social flexibility, like just run me through what's been different with that side of things.
I mean, the social aspect, or
Just even like the flexibility side of things, because you mentioned obviously the 500 HCG thing you're
yeah,
doing, your ice.
that was atrocious. It was atrocious. I'm embarrassed to actually say that, but in case anybody else out there has tried it, don't feel bad. It works, and then it doesn't. So, yeah, I think because, I could plan for it. So if I know something's coming up on the weekend and I want to have more than just a seltzer water, and pretend there's alcohol in there. I mean, I like to drink like most people do, or some people do, I guess. I plan for it so I don't freak out. And there's plenty of days where I don't need to eat as many calories because I'm just not that hungry and I'm not trying to force myself to eat it. So I save those until the end of the week, knowing that I'm going to do that. And knowing that, like, I've even done it where, one day I was like, ooh, I really wanted that piece of chocolate and it was 100 calories, but that put me over. So I would put it on my next day and be like, sorry, it's already covered. And, it's not like it's 5,000 calories or anything, but I just sort of put that on there. So it's like out of my mind. I messed up today, but I'll fix it tomorrow. And I always fixed it. It wasn't like, I was cheating and like, don't tell her I ate that. I'm not going to put that in my diary. I just pushed it to the next day. And then, it was fine. So that ability to do that. And then I never feel like, even when I'm eating something that is decadent or, a piece of pizza or something like that, I don't feel guilty about doing it, but I never overdo it anymore. And I used to overdo it all the time. It would be like, pizza's here, 4 pieces, like, so good. Now I eat a really heavy salad and I have 1 or 2 and I'm like, I'm good. I had a little bit. That mindset is so hard to change too, because you enjoy it, but you don't have to enjoy it for like 12 minutes. You can eat it for like 2, enjoy it and put it down and not be, stuck with all the decision that you made later on, and still enjoy it. I was out with a birthday party. I had a glass of wine. It was fine. I didn't feel like I needed to drink. I mean, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I don't really succumb to peer pressure like that. But, sometimes you want to be a little more social, and finding things like a glass of wine is 1 glass, or I can have 2 vodka sodas if it's not, a huge vodka, if it's a regular pour. So I can kind of space it out anymore. And I find I don't want to eat all that because I feel crappy if I eat too much of it anyway. So stuff I never thought I would say, I'm saying.
But that's savage, because you have a hell of a lot just like more control. Like food isn't controlling you. You're like in control of the actual situation, what you want, and
Yeah.
You stop when you're full and stop when you actually have had enough and satisfied.
Yeah.
Which is massive, because that's going to serve you a hell of a lot more in the long run when you
Yeah.
finish your fat loss phase, like hugely. Whereas before you
And
had
I've never felt that way before. I've always felt like I always held back, and then when I ate it, I really ate it. Then it was like, oh
Which
no.
I think all of us probably can relate to.
Been
there,
I
done that.
could get away with that when I was 20. I can't get away with that anymore. So yeah, sorry, my daughter.
And then see from like an online point of view, because obviously you're over in Pennsylvania in the
Yeah,
US, I'm over here in Ireland. You've obviously done a couple of things in the past, some things on your own. Like, how do you find like the online side of things and doing it this way?
it was really easy. I was surprised. I mean, it's not hard. We were what 5 hours difference, I think, something like that. So it's not like we're completely opposite ends of the world. I mean, we are, but it's not that difficult. I don't know what I'm saying. But it wasn't bad. I mean, if I had a question for you, I knew you weren't going to be able to answer me at 2 a.m. If I had a question about something that I ate, I'd take a picture of it. If I miscalculated it, I'd fix it tomorrow. I wasn't going to stress over it. But yeah, you were always kind of, hey, just checking in if you hadn't heard from me from a couple days. I mean, I pretty much got feedback right away. And in the morning when I would get up, whatever I asked was, you were answered because you were already up. You already been up for hours because I'm, 6 hours or 5 hours ahead or, behind you. So yeah, it was actually good. I was surprised when I tell people I'm doing an online training, they're like, what? Like, I thought you meant you had a personal trainer who goes to the gym with you. I'm like, yeah, but I don't really need someone to go to the gym with me. I need someone to tell me what workout to do. There's videos if you don't know how to do them. And then again, if I was unsure about something, I could always tape it and say, am I doing this right? So I think that is probably the biggest waste of your money is having someone just stand there for an hour with you, watching you do reps of squats. Like, yay, do the next rep, another rep. Like, I would much rather have you taking that time and analyzing, what did I eat yesterday that made me feel bloated? Why is my digestion off? How did you sleep last night? Try this. How about this? Did you try to go 30 minutes before? Like, those things were like super life-changing. They were way more than having someone stand in the gym going, great job, see you next week. And it was weird because I was telling people, like, you're doing what? She lives in Ireland? I'm like, yes, my trainer lives in Ireland. But it worked out really well.
Yeah, well, you're flying it so far. And like, say, because obviously you kind of jumped in, I think pretty soon, like after your call with Ash, you did do the leap of faith and just like, right,
Yeah.
let's go for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were in the Bikini Academy that long either. Probably had a little look around and that was.
Yeah, no. I mean, he called me within 2 days of me booking that little get more information. And then you called me 2 days after that. So it was like 6 days, maybe. 6 days.
And I see, because there's going to be a lot of people that maybe have been on calls or have calls coming up, or maybe someone who's like too afraid to have a call or sitting in this group 2 years, a year, however long. What would you say to someone who is sitting on the fence thinking about probably watching a ton of these videos beforehand?
I would say just do it. I said, and that's, everyone that you've done these calls with said the same thing. Like, I spend so much time, effort, and frankly, money on everything else in my life. My kids, my dog. I mean, the things I do for my dog, it's crazy. And why am I not doing something for myself? And, they always say, put your mask on first before you help somebody else. It's the same thing. Like, you can only do so much if you're run down, exhausted, tired, depressed, because you're not getting the results you want. You have bad body image. Those kind of things really translate into every part of your life, your job, your family, your children, your mood. I was snappy and just kind of miserable for a little bit, and then I'd be fine. But you have to take care of yourself, and you can't take care for anybody else if you don't care for yourself. And it's when I think about the money I spent on hockey lessons and private coaching and all those things for my everybody else, training lessons for the dog, those things are not cheap either. But this is probably the best investment I've ever made, and I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat. I mean, it's life-changing. And again, it's not just eat this and do this workout. It's the evaluation of everything else that's going on in your life, your sleep, your stress, your schedule, what's coming up tomorrow. Oh, you're going to be at the ballpark. What are you going to eat there? That's huge. I mean, it's like you have someone holding your hand from across the ocean who's showing you what to eat and what to do and how to sleep. And, even Raj, all those sessions with Raj and watching all of his amazing sort of Zen moments where you just can calm down and be like, that's right. I need to kind of recenter and get back to what matters. That's huge, 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 huge.
Awesome.
Do it.
Awesome. And before we hop off, any last minute things, or do you feel like you've got everything chatted out?
I think I did. I think everything's chatted out. It's been a really great experience, and I'm so grateful that I found it. I mean, who knew a Facebook click would be what it's done for me? But it's just been amazing. Like even my whole disposition about, fat loss and weight loss and working out and training has been completely transformed. I mean, really, I was never afraid to go to the gym. Now I feel like I'm actually working at the gym. I'm not just doing 12 bench presses. Oh, this is so fun. Like, and now I see other people doing it. I'm like, you really need to go heavier. That doesn't look very challenging. You're wasting your time.
You can probably start evaluating stuff now at this age. Absolutely savage.
It's been a great experience, a really great experience.
Absolutely savage. I really appreciate you coming on and taking time to do this with
Sure.
me. So we'll wave bye to who are watching, and I'm going to shut off this so you'll just disappear now.
All right.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Bye.
Thanks a million. Chatty soon.